the Atlantic Ocean. October 1917. A storm swallowed the sky whole. Waves the size of buildings slammed against a passenger ship rolling toward New York, carrying hundreds of immigrants chasing a better life. But before sunrise, most of them would be dead. And somewhere in the middle of that nightmare, a father would do something so horrifying that his daughter would spend the next 25 years believing he tried to murder her. This is the story of the man who threw his little girl into the freezing black ocean to save her life. Antonio Russo was only 28 years old. A poor Italian carpenter with rough hands, tired eyes, and nothing left in the world except his 5-year-old daughter, Maria. 2 years earlier, his wife Elena died during childbirth. Since then, Antonio had lived with one promise: Maria will have a better life. Italy was collapsing into poverty and fear after the war. There was no work, no future. America was their last chance. So Antonio sold everything he owned to buy 2 third-class tickets aboard an aging steamship heading to New York. The lower decks were crowded with immigrants packed into narrow rooms that smelled of seawater, coal smoke, and sickness. But Maria didn't care. To her, it was an adventure. That night, curled beneath her father's coat, she whispered, "Papa, when we get to America, will Mama still see us?" Antonio froze, then slowly kissed her forehead. "Your Mama sees everything, little star." Maria smiled and fell asleep in his arms. Antonio stayed awake, listening to the storm outside grow worse. 2:07 a.m. A violent crash exploded through the ship. Boom! The walls shook. Passengers screamed awake. Another impact hit seconds later. Then came the sound nobody aboard would ever forget. Metal tearing apart. Water burst into the lower decks, like a monster breaking through a wall. People panicked instantly. "The ship is flooding. Move! Get to the lifeboats." Antonio grabbed Maria from the bed. Ice-cold water was already rushing across the floor. The lights flickered. The ship tilted hard to one side. Women cried. Children screamed. Men shoved each other toward the stairways. Maria buried her face in Antonio's neck. "Papa, I'm scared." "I know," he whispered. "Just hold on to me." They pushed upward through the chaos. But every staircase was jammed with terrified people fighting to survive. A woman fell and disappeared beneath the crowd. A child screamed for his mother. Someone punched another passenger trying to climb over them. Human beings stopped acting human, and the water kept rising. By the time Antonio reached the upper deck, he knew the truth. They weren't going to make it. Most of the lifeboats were already gone. The remaining ones were overloaded. Crew members were screaming. The ship groaned like a dying animal. The freezing Atlantic wind cut through everyone like knives. Then Antonio saw it. A broken porthole near the side of the ship. Small. Too small for an adult. But maybe just big enough for a child. Outside was darkness. Endless black ocean. Violent waves. And far away, tiny moving lights. Lifeboats. Antonio stared at them, then looked down at Maria. She was crying uncontrollably. "Papa, don't let go of me." His heart shattered, because in that moment, he realized there was only one possible way to save her, and it would make her hate him forever. The ship tilted again. People slammed against walls. Some were already jumping into the sea. Others prayed. Others screamed. Maria clung tighter to him. Antonio grabbed her shoulders. "Listen to me carefully." Her tiny face trembled. "You see those lights?" She nodded. "You have to swim toward them. Maria looked confused. Together? Antonio couldn't answer, because tears had filled his eyes. The ocean outside was death. The water temperature was near freezing. Even grown men wouldn't survive long. But inside the ship, death was certain. This was not a choice between life and safety. This was a choice between impossible death and impossible survival. Antonio pulled his daughter close one final time. "I love you more than anything." Then, before she could understand, he shoved her through the broken porthole. Maria screamed. Her tiny body vanished into the black Atlantic. "Papa!" Antonio leaned out into the storm, screaming over the thunder. "Swim to the light." "Swim, Maria. Don't stop swimming." Those were the last words she ever heard from her father. 7 minutes later, the ship disappeared beneath the ocean, taking Antonio Russo and more than 100 passengers with it. His body was never found. The Atlantic at night is not water. It's darkness alive. Maria floated alone among debris and bodies. Every breath burned. Every wave dragged her under. She cried for her father until her voice vanished. But somewhere in her mind, she still heard him. Swim toward the light. So she kept swimming. 45 minutes later, a lifeboat spotted something moving in the water. A child, barely alive. Her lips were blue, her body nearly frozen solid, but she survived. A 5-year-old girl, alone, in a country she didn't know, unable to speak a single word of English. For the next 25 years, Maria believed her father abandoned her, because that's what it looked like. He threw her away, into the ocean, as if she meant nothing. That belief poisoned her entire childhood. Every birthday reminded her of that moment. Every nightmare ended with freezing black water, and her father's hands pushing her away. Then one day, when she was 30 years old, everything changed. A surviving crewman from the disaster found her and told her the truth. Her father didn't throw her away. He sacrificed himself. He knew he was already dead. But maybe his daughter still had a chance. For the first time in her life, Maria understood what really happened that night. Her father had not thrown her toward death. He had thrown her toward life. Maria Russo lived to be 92 years old. She had children, grandchildren, an entire bloodline that existed because one man made an impossible choice in the middle of a nightmare. At 83, during an interview, she said something that stunned everyone listening. "For years, I thought my father was trying to kill me." She paused, then whispered, "But he was trying to save me." Every birthday, she said she still heard his voice in the storm. "Swim toward the light." And she did. For 78 years, she kept swimming toward that light. Her final words about her father were simple. "Thank you, Papa. Thank you for giving me life. I love you." Sometimes horror isn't monsters. Sometimes horror is a father forced to choose between watching his child die or breaking her heart forever to give her one last chance to live. And sometimes the most terrifying act of love looks exactly like betrayal.